Hello everybody, I'm Ishan Pokral.
I'm Rakshith Ramdas.
And today we're here with the 31st episode of the PP Political Podcast. Today we're going to break down the Chinese balloon that you've been hearing about for the last week, what it is, its purpose, and the response, and the political ramifications of it. Because, China, U.S., there's always some tension. Cameron is not here. He's out taking a test on racism. We wish him all the best. That's not even a joke. We wish him the best. You guys don't know Rock. Rock is new to the show, first episode. So, Rock, just go through and introduce yourself, who you are, what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, man. I'm a freshman here at UAB. I'm a political science major with a concentration in American politics, minoring in international relations and legal affairs. I'm also an intern for the Institute of Human Rights here, but in recent years, I've done work for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee for John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, because I'm from Georgia. I also had a fellowship for the 2021 Senate runoff, and in my senior year of high school, I did a TED Talk on the issues of climate change, healthcare, and immigration. So I'm looking forward to the discussion that we have today.
It'll be fun. We've been trying to get Rock on for a while, and it works out. It worked out today, so this will be good. So just a little bit of background, and then we'll go through a timeline of the whole balloon incident. So there was a balloon floating around the United States. It went from Alaska all the way down to South Carolina. So I did a whole cross-country tour in a week until it was shot down by the Air Force. Let's go. That's literally the whole background. I mean, honestly, there wasn't much. American intelligence claims it was a Chinese spy craft. China denies it, but they haven't denied it too heavily, so we'll get into that later. Let's get into the timeline. January 28th, the balloon was first detected north of the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. January 30th, the balloon went to Canada, and then officials in Canada determined that it's probably spy craft. 31st, it's back in the United States, this time around Idaho, and the Department of Defense told President Biden about the issue at this point, and he inquires about shooting it down. Oh, and all the data is from Politico. The timeline is from Politico. The balloon, the next day, the February 1st, makes its way over Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. This is really important because Malmstrom is one of 3 sites in the United States that operates intercontinental ballistic missiles, which is a big deal, obviously. And it was seen hovering there for a while. Eventually, Joint Chief of Staff Chair General Mark Milley and U.S. Northern Command Chief General Glenn Van Herk recommend against shooting the balloon down at that stage because of the potential risk to civilians in the area from debris and all that. While this is all going on, Secretary of State Antony Blinken was scheduled to go to China and have a visit in Beijing, which would have been a very big deal, very rare, very big visit. The next day, this was canceled, or postponed at least. The day after that, February 3rd, China denies the claim that it's a spy ship and says that the balloon was just like a weather data collection device from a civilian, and quote-unquote expressed regret for it getting into the United States. This was obviously pushed back on by Americans. February 4th, this was past Saturday, at 2:39 p.m., an F-22 plane, I guess fighter jet, shoots one AIM-9X Sidewinder missile, air-to-air missile, and took the balloon down just off the coast of South Carolina. The balloon will be seized. I think diving teams are looking for the balloon right now. They'll be seized and examined by the intelligence community. China issued a statement at this time and called the operation a violation of international practice and threatened repercussions, but nothing too specific, thankfully. And today, February 6th, the time, or a little bit before we recorded, another balloon was seen China claimed a second balloon that was seen flying over Latin America. They also claimed this was a civilian craft, and it was being used for flight tests, which I don't really know what that means, but that's the timeline of where we're at with the balloons. Rock, what do you think? You've been following the news. What do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting that, first of all, how it was mentioned that the balloon was over Idaho and like traveling across the continental United States from west to east, how it wasn't even brought up to the point where there was no serious action really taken. I get that obviously for civilian concerns that it wasn't immediate action taken, but I find it interesting that there was no pushback from legislators in Congress or no immediate action taken, which which is interesting to me because it was flying over the ICBMs, which we really can't really have that happening for America as well. So
Yeah. I think, I mean, no disrespect to the great state of Montana, but like you could have shot it over Montana. Let's be let's be real here. No disrespect to Montana. It's a great place, very beautiful state, but there's not like an urban hub.
Yeah.
And a lot of these flyover states that it eventually had to have traveled over to get to South Carolina. So I find, I agree. I think it was just I guess, and we'll get into this later too, but there's been other instances of balloons flying around the United States in previous presidencies and even like last year and stuff. So it is interesting how we didn't really know about that until this one happened. So I mean, even if it was flying, those were flying over like ICBM bases too. I don't think we would have known. We only know about this one because the media caught on to it. If no one in Montana had looked up in the sky, then we wouldn't know about this. So shout out to them, I guess, even though I just dunked on them. I don't know. I mean, I was confused when I first heard about this because I was like, a balloon. I didn't know spy balloons were a thing.
I didn't either.
This is like a new thing. Apparently, I was reading into it today. Apparently, it's like a thing. U.S. like a lot of countries invest in spy balloons. No idea, but it made its way from Alaska all the way down to South Carolina. I understand, like you said, President Biden. He was pretty hesitant to shoot it above the United States.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense, but then I guess I see it's interesting. Like if because it wasn't just like flying over. Because the station I've read, the balloons are like they're able to like stay over areas.
Yeah.
So like they can just hover. So like if it was just hovering over Malmstrom and nothing was done, I'm sure they try to block the data or whatever. I don't know, but it just seems like a calamity all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, from the 28th of January up until right now, I don't really think there was any new information that was uncovered about the balloon other than the fact that it was flying from the Aleutian Islands to South Carolina. And so, I mean, you have to ask the question, like, why didn't they stop it when it was at the Alaskan Islands? Because if I understand that it didn't pose any threat or risk for the intelligence community, but at the same time, what made you take action now compared to when it was first found? Because really no crucial information was really found that really changed their mind. So
and also I think the first report, like they it was about halfway through the week last week, they started saying the second balloon was up around Latin America. And then today they took credit. China's claimed the balloon, obviously, but that kind of brings me to like the past instances. So The Hill has an article, came out yesterday night, what we know about Chinese balloon sightings during the Trump presidency. So there's at least reports have came out now that this one's come out. I guess it's been a little bit more palatable to release to the public from the intelligence community, that at least 3 similar aircraft were spotted in the United States during President Trump's time as president of the United States. I know one of these went around the south, so like Texas to Florida. I don't know about the other ones, but like I said, this is from the article, senior U.S. defense and military officials said Sunday that balloons similar to the one shot down by the Biden administration flew over the United States at least 3 times while Trump was in the White House. Now, it's funny because President Trump later that day claimed that like the balloons, like he said, because I miss Trump Twitter because it's so much fun. China had too much respect for Trump for this to have happened. I don't know, Trump's in all caps, I don't know why. So again, this will just be an interesting topic in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Also, President Biden has a State of the Union tomorrow. This will probably be addressed there. I'm sure it has to be a last-minute edition.
Yeah.
President Trump, he's campaigning. Will this become a thing for him? Who knows? There's not really much to say about like the details other than what we've said already. So let's just get into the political stuff because I mean that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
President Biden, like from like his action, he's been praised, but he's also been criticized heavily for taking so long to shoot the balloon down, but then also shooting the balloon down. It's like a weird mixture. So as people are saying that he shot it down too late, some people are saying at least he did shoot it down. I don't know. You can't really win, I feel like, overall. What do you think? I mean, like, I don't even know. Like, what do you think? Well,
I commend him for taking action in the first place, because I understand that he was under pressure from the Republican side of Congress, and also just understanding the fact that he didn't really know that information about the balloon in the first place. So, it's difficult to like really understand what the balloon's about, because China has also said that they're using it for weather devices and also for flight tests. Which, I mean, come on, you don't really have to like fly over American airspace for that information to be received.
And also, they said it was a civilian aircraft, and I mean, I haven't been to China.
Yeah.
I know people that have been to China. I don't know what civilian projects you're able to do independently that the Chinese government will take credit for. I mean, if the Chinese government's involved, it's probably a government action, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like you don't have the free will to do, like, you don't have the free will to do what you can do here in China. So it's just like a interesting reasoning that they've set up. House Intelligence Committee Chairman, our favorite, actually no one's probably heard of him, Representative Mike Turner from Ohio's 10th, called the threat, like the balloon in general. He just criticized the Biden administration's response, said that the Biden administration does not recognize the threat that it posed. I didn't really see Congressman Turner, not to dunk on him, I'm sure he's doing a great job.
This is probably one of the first times I've heard his name brought up.
Yeah, I didn't see him really talking about he didn't really talk about the balloon throughout the last week. He came up in the news again yesterday, the day before, but I didn't see him really talking about it until recently. Now, I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you're a Republican leader in Congress right now, you have to take like the side of going against Biden here for inaction. Yeah. But I think he does have a little bit of a point, because again, Senator Mitch McConnell too from Kentucky, he said that like he said it was hard to believe that there was nowhere in the United States like you could have shot the balloon down over like land and not like let it go all the way across, which I actually do understand the point. I feel like there's definitely areas where you can either do evacuation in very rural areas if you need to, or just something, you know. I feel like you don't have to wait for it to meander over to the coast and then finally shoot it down. Mm-hmm. It feels like a little bit of an inaction. I think Biden did want to shoot it down. He was saying he was going to like Camp David for last week, and he was stopping in New York and Delaware and stuff, and he was saying that they will shoot it down. Yes, they did shoot it down, but the inaction is a little interesting. I don't know. How do you think this is going to affect American opinion on China? That's another big...
Well, it reminds me of a situation back in the 1960s where, I don't know how familiar you are with the U-2 plane that was shot down by America when... So basically there was a U-2 spy plane by the Soviet Union that was shot down during the... I want to say the Eisenhower presidency. And so it reminds me of that because it's a very similar situation. And I think during that time period, it didn't really help with the Cold War. It really more so escalated the situation. So it's definitely going to raise concerns for Americans today when they think about that situation compared to now, because there are very similar situations like this happening so often. So there is great concern for why China is like continuously trying to increase tensions between us and their country. So you have to really ask why this is happening and why they're so willing to threaten our sovereignty when they understand the consequences of their decisions. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, they have done it before, clearly.
Yeah.
And they just got caught this time. So it's like, I feel like no one really knows how many times they've actually done this. Like, how many times... I guess someone knows probably, but no one publicly knows how many times they've just flown over, gathered intelligence. And I'm not saying that Americans don't obviously gather intelligence from other countries. I'm sure we do. I'd actually hope we would from like a preservation standpoint. But I don't know why there's nothing being done to prevent. Like, I mean, because like if the Trump administration saw 3, of course President Trump's denying this, but it's also very possible he didn't know if they weren't considered threats. It's possible they didn't tell him, obviously, because, the president doesn't know everything. But the question is why, I just don't see why no, preventative measures were put in beforehand. Mm-hmm. Not even just from the Trump administration, maybe from Obama's administration, maybe President Bush, anybody that's seen this issue arise. Yeah. And I agree with Senator, I've never probably said this, I agree with Senator McConnell. I mean, I don't know why, I don't see how there was nowhere in the Constitution of the United States you could have shot over maybe like Lake Michigan. I don't know, maybe like a lake. You could have shot it over that, and
John Bolton. I'm reading an article from CNN right now. John Bolton, who, if you don't know, was the former national security advisor for President Trump, stated, I'm just going to read this quote off right now.
Yeah.
The very fact, if it is a fact, that the Chinese had tried this before, should have alerted us and should have caused us to take action before the balloon crossed into American sovereign territory.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty obvious that if it is true that this has happened before, and like the inaction of the Biden administration is really like evident right now, there should have been more action done quicker. And if it is true, we will never know if it is true or not, but yeah,
and I guess one thing that's going to come out of this, supposedly, it seems like the way Congress has been moving, people have been talking, what I've been hearing is that like bipartisan support has been here to investigate the balloon. It's actually kind of it's pretty popular to being a little bit tough on China is kind of like a bipartisan thing now. I think it was a little, now it's like it's really bipartisan. So I think this is going to increase like some kind of funding. I don't know if it's going to be good funding. It's going to increase something that goes towards investigating this claim. Of course, we're going to get the balloon, and President Trump's, or not President Trump, the Biden administration is going to have intelligence examine it and everything, and I'm sure something will come out of that. Probably not everything that they know will not be released clearly, but something will be released. I think Katie Britt, our senator here in the great state of Alabama, was saying, she said she was deeply concerned by the lack of transparency from the Biden administration regarding the CCP's balloon. So she's not a fan. That being said, that was just random. I just saw the tweet come up. But I think we're going to see more increased funding towards like not really combating. You can't really combat spycraft, but like doing something, either increasing our own supply of spycraft or doing something to like deter Chinese spycraft. I don't know how they're going to do it. But also, again, Secretary Blinken is going to Beijing at some point. What do you think that meeting is going to be like now?
To even think that the meeting is going to happen is a bit of an assumption as well. I don't even know if it's going to go through in recent weeks or even months, really, depending on how the situation plays out. I think it'll be interesting to see what ramifications it'll have for trade relations and also international waters as well, because from what you brought up earlier, I think it was over Canadian airspace as well.
Yeah.
And so I want to see how they respond as well, because I don't think they've come up with a statement.
I don't think so either. I haven't looked really, to be honest. I haven't really looked, but they were the ones that classified the balloon as a threat. Because in Alaska, they said that there would be no threat, but then the Canadians determined it was spycraft. So,
right.
Yeah. Maybe they'll be keeping tabs. And also, I mean, there's been other balloons in Asia, in Europe, of course, Latin America, like Colombia. Colombia was the country that really saw that, spoke up about the second one. They said that they believed it posed no risk. But also, Colombia is not in like a quote unquote, not a Cold War, but also kind of a Cold War with China. So I can see why they think it poses no risk to them. Canada, I think, would be a different story, because Canada is a bigger country, bigger GDP, bigger economy, all that, and also a very close ally to us. How do you think this could also have ramifications on Chinese politics, especially with Taiwan? Because that's a big fight that's gonna probably not fight literally, but could be a fight literally. That's gonna come up in the near future. Do you think? I mean, we already have fractured relations with China, but
with Taiwan.
With China, but like China and Taiwan. Yeah. But now that we're kind of like, this is definitely gonna set back any decent standing we have with China a little bit for at least a couple months. What do you think they're gonna do to like not really capitalize, but like move on, like, because now that we're kind of back to another square, I think we're pegged down a couple holes.
Yeah.
What do you think they're going to do in the near future here? What does China do, basically, in any sense?
Well, that whole situation with Taiwan could develop into like I don't want to say war necessarily, but I want to say like the term I'm thinking of is like proxy war, basically.
Yeah.
But I'm hesitant to say of like a full war.
Yeah.
Because I think that already how it's seen right now is that Taiwan's like a pawn between China and America, because America has trouble siding with either Taiwan or China, because they don't want to alienate themselves from China and escalate that situation for them even more by siding with Taiwan. But I think it'll be interesting to see if China will use Taiwan as a way of punishment, essentially, for why America took their balloon and shot it down as well. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely an option that they could use. It's not out of the question for the government. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that covers all like our foreign policy aspects. We're not big foreign policy people. I don't know if you guys have seen our podcast episodes. We are not big on foreign policy. So we'll get back to the United States. My favorite topic: how is this going to impact 2024 and election season? Because that's already starting. President Trump has announced his candidacy. There's reports. That's my crow. Oh, shoot. There's reports. Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina, and former UN ambassador, will be announcing her presidential campaign soon. Mike Pence, Vice President Mike Pence, will probably announce. Governor Glenn Youngkin supposedly is also. There's a lot of characters, and then also on the Democratic side, who knows what's happening. I don't think the Democrats know what's happening. So there's going to be a lot of players in 2024. This is definitely going to be, at least in the early part of the campaign, this is going to be probably a big deal. Again, President Biden has a State of the Union tomorrow. This is definitely going to be addressed. There's no way he gets away with not addressing it.
Yeah.
How do you think this is going to impact both, like, American public perception towards China during election season? Like, do you think we're going to be more hawkish? Or do you think we're going to, I don't know how else we'd be, but how do you think this is going to really affect the candidates' positions towards China?
Well, I think this may be one of the few issues, if not the only one, where all candidates from both sides will be able to like really unify on this issue, because I don't really think that it's a smart move for any candidate to really side with the fact of like saying that China was using weather aircraft to use for the data, whatever. It's not a smart move for any one of them to do. I think especially Nikki Haley was going to capitalize on this because she was the governor of South Carolina. That's where it shot down, and she's going to use this as a means of getting into like foreign policy talk, because as governor she hasn't really had that experience to do so. So yeah, Trump is going to. We all know how Trump is going to react to this. We've already seen the tweets and the statements that he's put out. So
yeah, his truths have been coming in. I'm not on Truth Social. I should join Truth Social just to see what Trump says. But apparently he's back on Twitter. He's thinking about coming back onto Twitter. He needs to, probably, if he wants to be reaching to a broader audience.
Yeah.
Again, that's all election talk. I think we said this like the last 4 weeks. We will be doing an election podcast soon. We need more candidates to get into the race, a little bit more campaigning to heat up, but we will do that. That'll be a fun time. I don't even, I feel like we explained it. I feel like we also got off track a lot. It is what it is, but again, just to the highlights, China had a spy balloon, and it happened to go across the United States, hover around very important missile bases, military bases, all that, and it was finally shot down on Saturday on the command of President Biden. Shout out to the pilot who shot down the balloon, because that's like the first air-to-air kill probably in a while for the Air Force. So shout out to him on American soil. At least shout out to the pilot there. Good work. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to clarify something that I brought up earlier with the U-2 spy flight plane. I actually got it wrong. It's my fault. It was actually an American spy plane that was shot down over Russia. And Eisenhower was quick to say that it was a weather plane that was off course, and it crashed into the Soviet Union. And Khrushchev, the leader at the time, said that he had evidence, and it was pretty damning evidence that the U-2 was not a weather plane, but it was in fact a spy plane. They were able to capture Francis Gary Powers, who was the pilot of the plane, and Eisenhower had to regrettably, I can't even say it.
Regrettably,
yes, thank you. Say that it was a U.S. spy plane. So it's kind of switched now. I'm curious to see how Biden will play on this historical aspect of it and see if he either repeats the same, if China repeats the same mistake as what we did back in the 60s, or if they're able to really come forward and say that this was in fact a spy plane, or if not, we'll see from the investigation what happens.
One good thing about President Biden's elderly age, 79, 80. One good thing about him is that he probably honestly remembers that incident. And genuinely, it's actually going to be very helpful in these times. That's one of the good things about him being a little older, or older than all other presidents, that he has no other presidential candidate would have that experience. Not to say that it makes him automatically qualified to be president, but he does have the memories of these Cold War events, which could be helpful in the future. So it is an interesting thought for the voters. I know they tried to play a little bit of it on the campaign, but they didn't really successfully do it. But it is something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
That's I think we've covered everything. Again, the spy balloon. Everybody's a little confused about it, so this is why this podcast doesn't seem as comprehensive as last week. I feel like there's just a lot going on still with it, but we wanted to talk about it a little bit. Thank you again for Rock for filling in last minute. I texted him 15 minutes before recording, so thank you for that. I think it was good.
Thanks
where
for having me.
Where can everybody find you everywhere on the internet?
You can look at my TED Talk on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram, RAKSHITHRAMDAS. If you want to hear more about what I can do and hear more about my ideas, you can always follow me on Instagram and reach out to me for sure. Yeah,
and we'll put all those in the description. You guys know where to follow us, PB Political AL. Don't follow me because I am PB. I'll just follow PB Political AL. Sure. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Follow PB Political on TikTok. Follow our podcast. Our podcast Instagram Reels blew up last week. That was kind of crazy. So maybe we'll do it again this week. Thank you for listening. I'm Ishan Pokral.
I'm Rakshith Ramdas.
And goodbye.